There, we're ready and online whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you. Patrick, are we ready? Yep. All right, well, I want to welcome everyone to the July 21st, 2025 meeting of the City of Lafayette, California Transportation and Circulation Commission meeting. So I'm calling this meeting to order. It is 7:02. I'll begin with a roll call of commissioners, beginning with Commissioner Greg Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Lynn Hedane.
Here.
Commissioner Michelle Zahar.
Present.
Commissioner Mark Drager.
Present.
And we have Commissioner Tony Ratner is not present tonight. And I do want to take a moment to welcome both Mark Drager and Tony, who is not here, but I want to welcome them both to the commission. They're new commissioners, so welcome. Thanks for joining us, appreciate it. And maybe you can just take a brief moment to introduce yourself to the commission and to anyone that's listening.
Yeah, well, thank you for the welcome. I'm happy to be here. I'm Mark Drager. I've lived in City of Lafayette for 4 years now. But I've been with my wife for about 12 years, and she grew up in Saranac, so I'm pretty familiar with the area. And she got a taste of where I grew up in San Francisco. And now it's time for me to kind of do that exchange and be out here, and I'm loving it. I'm loving the pace of life. Still work in San Francisco as a transportation planner at the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency. And I thought I could stay away in my new hometown, but I just can't turn my brain off. So I'm really happy to be here thinking about these sorts of things from different perspective.
Well, we got you. That's great.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. And we'll hear from Tony when he joins us at our next meeting. I'm Bart Carr, I'm the commission chair, and obviously I'm here. We do unfortunately have one vacancy still, and that's because former Commissioner Stella Weatherspoon, who's here tonight, has been selected to join City Council, which is great news. So congratulations on that. I do have a speaker slip from Stella, so I don't know, Stella, if you want to say some things now or wait till public comment, we can do it.
Whichever.
Let's just public comment
Now.
now. Let's do it now. Let's do it now.
So I just wanted to stop by. This will be my, I guess, sorry, Lynn. This is not my last transcirc. I thought it might be, but I was sworn in on Friday, and so I'm officially a member of City Council, and I'm not on transcirc, but I wanted to come and see you all, live and in the flesh, and just thank you so much for all of your hard work, for all of the time that you put into the commission and really worked hard to make a difference for Lafayette residents and move us forward. I think that you all are great, and the work you're doing is super valuable, and thank you for being there with me. Thank you.
Do you know what what committees you'll be liaison for?
I looked at the list, but I don't remember all of them, and it's not transcirc.
Okay.
Yeah, you have John McCormick and Susan Candell. Yeah. But I'll still be watching you on Zoom or YouTube.
Well, you've made a big difference to this commission. So we as a commission staff, much appreciative of that. You're going to be sorely missed.
Yeah.
But you're on to bigger and better things on City Council. Different,
Slightly
bigger,
different thing.
better. So best of luck on that. And again, thank you for everything you've done. Again, don't forget your roots.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would be remiss, I'm sorry to have the last word, in saying I am so happy to have worked closely with you, Patrick. Really, I mean, you just get the work done of a million people, and you are so valuable in the city. Really, we've just seen so much good work come out of your hands. The grants, the projects that have moved forward, the communities that have had their projects considered on all sides. Really, it's so appreciated. So thank you.
And we all agree with that. So thank you for those comments. So thank you, Stella. Stella was also the vice chair of this commission. So we are now vice chairless. So we're not going to try to fill that position tonight, but maybe the next meeting we might do that. So for the more longer serving members of the commission, we won't ask the newbies to join us, but the longer, we might consider who might be willing to step up, and it's not really a heavy lift. I mean, did you ever chair a meeting? Maybe one?
We didn't have quorum,
We'd have, okay, so it's not,
ready to go.
I normally make the meetings as chair, but maybe rarely, occasionally, you might have to chair a meeting, but just, we'll address that next meeting, so. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, item 3 does not pertain to tonight's meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
okay, was that a?
I,
Okay, great, thank you. I have a couple things I need to read off as I do at every meeting, so let me get that out of the way. First of all, regarding video access to this meeting for those not attending physically, members of the public may participate virtually in this meeting via video feed. However, the city cannot guarantee that the public's access will be uninterrupted and technical difficulties may occur. Every effort will be made, can't read with this lighting. Every effort will be made to restore video audio access. However, unless required by the Brown Act, Transportation and Circulation Commission meetings will continue despite technical difficulties. In the event of a video interruption, members of the public are invited to join us at the meeting in person. And then regarding public comment must be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission and can be either given for items on the agenda at the time the item is being heard during the meeting or during the public comment agenda item for items not on the agenda. In-person commenters are asked to submit speaker slips, and public comment is limited to 3 minutes. If a commenter reaches or exceeds 3 minutes, I will politely ask the commenter to conclude his or her comments. So with that out of the way, we will go into the public comment period. I see no one here who would want to provide a public comment. Do we have anyone online?
Yes, there is a participant online, so if anyone online would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom now. There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. I do want to mention at this time that staff received 3 comments, emailed comments that were requested be forwarded to us, which were, and I assume everyone received those and had a chance to take a look at it. We're not going to entertain those emailed comments at tonight's meetings individually. I just wanted to recognize that we did receive those comments. And what will happen is staff will retain those comments, and any comments that we might receive in the future that don't address an agendized item or isn't an item that a commissioner wants to agendize at a future meeting, those comments will be retained in the future and will be referred to in the future when there's either a project or something in planning that they might relate to. So we'll hold on to those basically. So I just wanted to recognize those and mention that. Okay, with that, we're going to go into the agenda, and there is a change to the agenda. We're going to, I guess, go to the new business item first. Patrick, is that correct?
correct.
Okay, so we will do that, and then the old business items, the quarterly report and the TAR appeal will be handled in order following the new business item. So the new business item is the Mount Diablo Boulevard right turn on red restrictions project. Staff's recommendation for this item is to forward the Mount Diablo Boulevard right turn on right restrictions, that's a mouthful, project to City Council for conceptual approval. But we have a staff report on that, and I think we have some people going to talk to us about that. So let's go into that now.
All right, I'll kick things off and then hand things over to my colleague Bruno. We talked a lot in this commission about safety along Mount Diablo Boulevard, particularly for pedestrians and cyclists. Anecdotally, in our engineering department, we get more calls and emails and complaints about the intersection of Moraga Boulevard Moraga Road at Mount Diablo Boulevard than anywhere else in the city. Particularly from pedestrians who don't feel necessarily safe making that crossing. When we did the local road safety plan, the LRSP study in 2013, we had a large online survey where we received 1,200 responses, 1,200 respondents participated. And among other questions were asked to identify locations where they felt particularly safe or uncomfortable across Lafayette. And again, that intersection of Moraga Road at Mount Diablo Boulevard really lit up more than anywhere else, as well as many of those intersections, other intersections along Mount Diablo Boulevard. Fast forward to 2024, and I had put together a staff report that I discussed here, as well as a council where we talked about transportation priorities. And this study was on that list of projects that council wanted staff to prioritize. So in response, I have my friends here from Fair and Peers help me with the technical analysis of what would happen if we did implement right turn on red restrictions at 3 intersections along Mount Diablo Boulevard. And that's what we're here to discuss tonight. So with that, I'll pass it off.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. My name is Bruno Lerchra from Fair and Peers, and I'm here with Sarah Chan, my colleague as well. So like Patrick was mentioning, today we'll walk through the results of this study, focusing on evaluating right turn on red restrictions at 3 signalized intersections along Mount Diablo Boulevard. So let's get going. Oh, sorry, next slide. I thought I had control for a second.
That's all right. Wait, that's got to come all the way down here.
Oh,
That's the PDF. Give me just one moment. I do have it as a PowerPoint as well. Let's need to sign in. It'll just be a moment, Chair. I know it's the machine, didn't have PowerPoint open. Getting there. Slideshow from the beginning.
very.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
So yeah, here's a quick overview of what we'll cover today. So I'll just kick off the presentation by giving some context on the background, the purpose of the study, although Patrick, I think, covered it pretty well. Then we'll talk about the safety benefits of the right on red restrictions. And from there, I'll go into the traffic operations considerations before wrapping up with conclusions and next steps. And then we'll give some time for questions. So what is this project? This study focuses on 3 signalized intersections, as you can see on the screen, along Mount Diablo. So we have Oak Hill Road, Moraga Road, and First Street. And looks at what would happen if we restrict the right turns on red at all moments for all approaches on these 3 intersections. So like I said, the right turn red restriction would apply at all moments. That's a key assumption of this analysis. And the purpose of this study or the project is to separate vehicles from pedestrians and cyclists around the main downtown corridors of Lafayette. So Patrick already mentioned how this project aligns with the local roadway safety plan and how during that process, the intersection of Mount Diablo and Moraga Road was frequently cited as one of the most problematic ones and unsafe for residents walking and biking. And also, I think probably most of you know, there was a recent, I think a couple of weeks ago, collision at First Street and Mount Diablo between a vehicle and a minor that was crossing when the vehicle was trying to make a right turn on red. So I think that shows why this project is, why we're talking about this project today and why it could be important to restrict those right turns on red along Mount Diablo. Next slide, please. So we'll start with the safety side of the analysis, which is really the heart of this study. So the main question here is, if we prohibit right turns on red along these three intersections, do we reduce potential conflicts between drivers and people walking or biking along Mount Diablo? And as you can see on the screen, the answer is yes, and significantly. With the right turn on red restrictions, there's the total point of conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians and bicyclists reduces from 15 to 7 along the Moraga Road and First Street intersections, and from 12 to 6 along the Oak Hill Road intersections. So that's more than a 50% reduction in the total conflicts between vehicles, bikes, and pedestrians. Specifically, if we just think about the vehicle and pedestrian conflicts, those go from 23 to 12 conflict points, excuse me, and then the vehicle bicycle conflicts go from 19 to 8. So again, around a 15% reduce for those two types of conflicts. Here on the next slide, you can see basically a summary of what I just mentioned of the safety benefits that were shown in the previous slide. And also another important safety consideration is that this study and its results would align with the city's safety plan that Patrick mentioned. So now on to the traffic analysis. The main objective here was to evaluate the traffic effects of restricting right turns on red at these three signalized intersections. And as I mentioned before, a key assumption here is that this study assumes that the right turn on red restriction would happen through all cycles. So it would always be active and it wouldn't depend on if a pedestrian is crossing or not. Before I jump into the results, I want to quickly just walk you through how we structure this analysis. So first, we began by collecting vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian counts at these study intersections along Mount Diablo. We also went to the field and did a field visit and conducted field observations, watching how people moved and how traffic behaved during the peak hours. And just a note, for purposes of this analysis, we also included the signalized intersection, as you can see there, of Mount Diablo and Golden Gateway, as it's between the study intersections. So we focused on the weekday peak periods, the AM peak, which is when most people are commuting to work or school, and then the school PM peak, which is from about 2:45 p.m. to 3:45 p.m., which is the afternoon period that was chosen over the more typical later afternoon from like 4 to 6 p.m. period, because the data and our observations showed that there was more pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle activity during those times, which increases the potential points of conflict and the amount of conflicts that happened. And that's especially happening because of the school pickup traffic, as you probably know. So altogether, this gave us a pretty realistic picture of the quarter's busiest period, and allows us to evaluate how these right turn on red restrictions would perform when the system is under the most pressure during the day. So what changes on the traffic operations side? So good news here is that most intersections saw minimal changes, with delays increasing less than 10 seconds. But there is one intersection, which is Mount Diablo and Moraga Road, which showed an increase of more than 10 seconds. But this specifically happened only during the school PM peak hour. So the AM peak hour still had an effect of less than 10 seconds. The school PM peak hour, which is when there's most like I mentioned, potential conflicts and also most pedestrian, bicycle and vehicle activity around those study intersections.
What did you consider the school PM peak hour?
2:45 to 3:45 PM. That was, we conducted counts between 2 and 6 PM. And basically shows when the vehicle traffic, pedestrian traffic, and also the bicycle traffic was the largest. And that was that hour between 2:45 and 3:45. So importantly, even with this increase in delay at this specific intersection on Moraga Road, the queues remain contained. And the length of congestion did not reach nearby intersections such as Moraga Road and Moraga Boulevard going south of Mount Diablo. So as you can see on this figure, this is basically summarizing those same results. During the AM peak hour, the increase in average delay at all intersections was contained to no more than 10 seconds, including the unsignalized intersection at Golden Gateway, which is that small circle that you can see on your screen. And if we go to the next slide, we'll be able to see that on the school PM peak period, given the higher amount of activity, multimodal activity, especially from people traveling north and trying to make a northbound right turn from Moraga Road to Mount Diablo going east, there is a higher increase in delay at that intersection. The other three intersections see a pretty similar increase in average delay as the AM peak period. So it is important to note here that we are considering the two busiest hours of the 24-hour period in a day. So these results really represent a worst case scenario during these two periods when the traffic is the highest. Here's a bit of a different way of thinking about how this project can impact on traffic operations. So not just thinking about what happens at a specific intersection, but what happens along different routes that people usually take, right? So Moraga Road and Mount Diablo are the main corridors in the downtown Lafayette. So here you can see how those differences in travel times change with the project, going, for example, from point A to point B or from point A to point C, which are pretty common routes that happen, especially during the PM peak hour. So here you can see that for the school PM peak hour, you're going from point A to point B or from point A to point C, so going north. There is a increase in the travel time of 25 seconds, which are mostly contained in that Moraga Road segment just south of Mount Diablo Boulevard. But then for all of the other combinations, so going south or going that same direction in the AM peak hour, there's either no difference in the average travel time or there's even a reduction of the travel times, as you can see on that table on the slide. Yeah, please.
Did anyone ask you to pay special attention to Oak Hill and what's the name of the road?
Lafayette Circle? Like the one.
No, behind Safeway. What's that? What's the
Deer
road?
Hill,
Huh?
Deer Hill.
Deer Hill, yeah. Okay, did anyone ask you to pay special attention to Deer Hill?
No, that intersection wasn't included here, especially because it wasn't signalized, so we really wanted to
They
focus.
want it signalized, definitely.
Oh, that one?
They want it they
They
want,
wanted signalized.
They want it
The queues don't touch Deer Hill Road. The queues don't extend from Mount Diablo up to Deer Hill Road.
nothing does,
Right.
but we get people hit on what's it called,
Deer Hill.
what is it again?
Deer Hill.
Deer Hill.
Yeah, no, and let me rephrase, we did analyze how the queues, starting at those specific, at those four intersections, how they travel and hit and potentially hit other intersections.
Yeah,
And the main finding is that they don't, with the project, they don't spill all the way back and, for example, block a nearby intersection.
yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't included as a study intersection, but it was included when looking at the impacts of those, for example, that intersection one, which is Oak Hill Road and Mount Diablo, we did look at if the queuing from there could hit a nearby intersection, and it wasn't the case.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So what does this all tell us, right? So from a safety perspective, this policy would cut pedestrian and bicycle conflicts in half, as you saw before. It would also improve safety and comfort for those people walking and biking around Mount Diablo Boulevard. And this also means that this project is a pretty good opportunity to address that collision that happened a couple of weeks ago between that car and the child when a car was making a right turn on red. From a traffic perspective, the impacts were localized for that one intersection, right? The Moraga Road and Mount Diablo intersection, and that one specific peak hour, which is the school PM peak hour, which is when activity is the largest, especially because of kids being picked up from school or walking or biking to their houses after school. So as a bit of a conclusion and kind of like wrapping up all together, analysis findings show that the right turn red restrictions offer a practical step towards safer street and offer measurable safety improvements on Mount Diablo Boulevard. Based on national best practices, as Fran Pierce, we do recommend that if these restrictions are implemented, they should be implemented at all times. So not just when a pedestrian is present at the intersection. This is considered consistent with our analysis assumption, like I mentioned at the beginning, and doing so would make it more predictable and not depend or rely on the judgment of drivers along the road. Now, given the increase on the average delay at some of the intersections, we do recommend optimizing signal timings to help offset these increases in delay. For example, one way of doing this is allowing a right turn overlap phases for those right turn movements that have a lot of activity at those peak hours. Just for your understanding, overlaps would allow more green time for those vehicles trying to make a right turn. This could be done, for example, by implementing LED blank out signs like the ones you see on this slide, which is the same one that you see at the Moraga Road and Brook Street intersection right now. So furthermore, there's also the CCTA Smart Signals project, which could be implemented along with this project, and that could further optimize the timing and the traffic flow along Mount Diablo Boulevard, trying to maintain the existing corridor's performance. This study doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? As you know, Patrick has been doing a good amount of work with different projects. It's part of a larger momentum around Mount Diablo Boulevard, around increasing walkability and safety in downtown Lafayette. So now I'll pass it to Patrick for a minute to talk a little bit about these studies and opportunities that are coming up.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of existing projects and then future projects that are all intended, as Bruno said, to improve safety, walkability, bikeability downtown. The first one being the Town Center Pathway and BART Bike Station project. Matt Luttrop was here this winter to talk about this project, which will include some pedestrian and bike improvements on the south side of the BART station, making that connection between the fare gates and the existing town center pathway more comfortable, more pleasing, more of a public space. The next project, the BART Access Gap Analysis. This is a grant that I was successful in getting this past spring. This will be a planning study that will take a look at improving access for pedestrians and cyclists to and from the BART station, so generally within a half mile of the BART station. So that work will happen again starting later this year. Next slide. The Lafayette Aqueduct Pathway have a grant now to start detailed design of that project. That'll result in a class 1 facility along the East Bay Mud Aqueduct right away through downtown. And then finally, the planning department will lead a update to the Mount Diablo Boulevard corridor study that will address a lot of issues, urban design, but also council's direction to staff to ensure that with all the new housing and changes in land use that are expected in our downtown, that it become more multimodal and friendly for everyone who wants to travel to and from downtown.
Yeah, so please.
So this is our time, the commission's time, to be able to ask questions and better understand what's being presented to us. So I'll open it up to the commission. What are your questions for either the consultants or staff? Go ahead, Greg.
Patrick, to confirm, none of the intersections being discussed here tonight have the offset signals that were recently implemented. That's further west down Mount Diablo, is that correct?
Correct, right, so the intersections immediately west of Lafayette Circle East now have the leading pedestrian interval or the opportunity for pedestrian to start. They get their walk signal before the conflicting vehicles do.
Okay. But this would just be applicable to these three intersections okay. And then I guess I want to understand better, you had the sign you mentioned at Brook Street. Where would that be implemented? And that would be, always lit, right? With the no right turn.
Yes, but with the overlaps, that could, so yes, generally, yes, that would always be lit for prohibiting right turns from red. But there's some cases in which the pedestrians already have a red ball, right? Like they cannot cross.
Right.
And the person trying to make a right turn also has a red. So there's times in which that then would not be lit, so right turns would be allowed. And that would basically allow those right turns to have more time to basically clear out the intersection. And reduce the change in delay that we saw in the results.
But Greg, I think you're asking a different question. The sign at Moraga at Brook, the existing sign, that's only activated when pedestrians hit the
Right.
button.
Right.
So Fair and Piers is recommending that at Mount Diablo, that sign is always lit. But staff could make a different decision. Staff could say, at these three intersections that we're talking about, the right turn on red restriction could apply only when a pedestrian hits the button, or it could apply at every cycle. I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and then would that be at, is your recommendation that be at all three of the intersections or at the Moraga, Mount Diablo?
At all
intersection?
three intersections, yeah.
That the no right turn signal would always be on, preventing, right? So help me understand let's see if we can go back to the optimization slide.
It's probably further down.
Yeah, it's towards the end.
Yeah.
Before that, it's the one before that. There we go, yeah. So help me understand that the second bullet, implement signal timing optimization to help maintain performance. Go into that a little
Yeah,
further.
just generally speaking, that means green time is generally set at an intersection, right? For movements to go through, right?
Right.
Optimizing signal timing means giving the latest data on traffic demand for that intersection,
Right,
giving more green time, so adjusting that green time. So for example, if now there's more right turns trying to make it through that cannot make it through on red, so that demand goes up, giving that movement more green time. So basically adjusting based on that new demand with the project, because it wouldn't change without the project, with the project, adjusting that configuration so to allow more right turns to happen when they do have a green light.
And that will be easier to implement with the Smart Signals project. Today, that's manual, right? If we want to change the signal timing or signal phasing, we have to change it on paper and send our contractor out there to physically make that change in the controller box. But with the
Right.
Smart Signals project, it will become much more automated.
so I'm just trying to visualize the effect this would have on Moraga Boulevard. As an example, in the morning, during commute periods where you have the congestion around Lafayette School, around, if let's say you're heading from St. Mary's Road towards Mount Diablo Boulevard, and you have to negotiate Brook, the school traffic, you get beyond that, beyond Moraga Boulevard, and then you hit, the change at, you know, and, you know, at Mount Diablo Boulevard. When you consider all of that together, I mean, is the impact of doing this gonna be more significant than what is shown in, you know, in your slides in the report? Because right now you're just looking at just the slowdown in back of the intersection of Moraga Road and Mount Diablo Boulevard. You're not considering what's happening in back of that.
Well, they are. If you read the report, it looked at delay, it looked at queuing, it looked at
Travel time.
travel times.
Yeah, so that travel time that we included is basically grabbing all the way from St. Mary's, all the way south.
Oh, it
St.
does
Mary's.
consider from
Still,
St.
yes.
Mary's?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
And if I could interject, we also looked at the length of the queue and that the queue is go back down to St. Mary's.
okay.
And so that's how it tells us that, okay, St. Mary's would not be affected by the implementation of that road.
Because on page 4 of 6 of staff's report, on table 1, it shows an increase of only 35 from 50 seconds to 30 to 85 seconds, so an increase of 35 seconds. I don't know when,
For the afternoon.
that's afternoon,
Yeah,
right?
it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think in your question with respect to the morning peak, we're actually not seeing that much of a change. For that commute traffic going northbound on Lafayette towards Liberty Way. Northbound on Murrah.
And currently, there is a no right turn signal at the Moraga Road, Mount Diablo Boulevard intersection when pedestrians initiate that, right? Is that correct?
No,
Or is that, no?
no, there's a sign that says.
That there's a-
Pedestrian
no.
crosswalk or something,
A yield to pedestrian.
yield to yeah. That lights up,
Right.
that lights up when a pedestrian puts the button, right?
Mhm.
But that actually, that is
Or maybe I'm mixing it up with Brook and
Brook and
Moraga.
Rob,
That's maybe it, I'm getting mixed up. Yeah, that's where there's a no,
right,
right? Okay,
yes,
okay.
right. That one stops all traffic when the button is hit.
Right,
You
right.
can't
Okay,
turn.
that's, I got them mixed up. Okay. Any other questions for?
I have a couple. Did you look at changes in cycle length for any of these intersections? I'm just seeing some improvements for some of these,
Yeah,
like southbound at Moraga, and I think the westbound left turn at Lafayette Circle West, things actually perform a little bit better with this. I'm just wondering, like, what else you looked into to look at cycle lengths?
yeah, we looked into cycle lengths. The tricky thing with cycle lengths is that all these signals are coordinated.
Yeah.
Right, so you can't really make one change here. And it's gonna make this intersection work super well, but then the nearby intersections now not gonna work well, right? Because they're coordinated, that means you have what is called a green wave, right? You're hitting all the greens as you go. So we did look into that. Just preliminarily, it didn't make too big of a difference. But we do think that with the Smart Signals project, that could kind of unlock some additional savings on.
But these synchro models don't assume any change in cycle length versus
not
existing conditions?
Yeah,
Okay. And then my other question is, the southbound right turn at First Street feels like it could get a signal modification with a right turn arrow, is that what you're proposing with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Because currently the eastbound left turn happens and the north leg of the crosswalk and the west leg of the crosswalk are off.
Yeah.
And people make a red, they stop at the red, at least we ask that they do, but they don't really need to.
Yep.
So that feels like a very obvious thing to optimize. It sounds like
Yes,
that's what you're proposing.
that's kind of like.
Just
the
actually have a
big-
green arrow.
Exactly.
So this sounds good and we appreciate the analysis and this and. To be honest, there's always traffic on Moraga Road in Mount Diablo. You can tell me anytime, any day, there's always traffic. Like there's always delays. Like I'm on that street a lot. We do carpools, we do drop off at Lafayette Elementary. And like I'm in Burton Valley, but no one really wants to drive to Burton Valley. So we do a lot of exchanges at Lafayette Elementary. So I'm there at 1, I'm at there at 3, I'm at there at 9, I'm at there a lot. There's delays there. So Mike, one of the big ones was, of my questions was like, how do we prevent the buildup? Because there's gonna be buildup. So, and that was, you said cycling, so we have to consider that. And I do think that's really important because it's gonna be a buildup if there is a no turn. And then even today, I dropped off the carpool and I took a ride from Lafayette Elementary School after I had to send an email, so I was in the parking lot for like maybe 6 minutes. And the mom that was doing carpool to Wilder was still waiting to take a right turn into Moraga Road to go to Wilder. Like she was still waiting for 6 minutes because she couldn't take a right turn. So it's more than 35 seconds. So it's like, I think that we have to like really take a look at that and look at the numbers. I just wanted to highlight on that. And then the second piece I really want to talk about is enforcement. Like, we can talk about like no turns on right. It's like when we get off on Pleasant Hill Road and on like towards Rossmore, and it says no turn on right. Like, a lot of people take a turn on right. I don't know how many people kind of take it for that. So I like, what is the thought process of saying, okay, like on those 3 streets, and because there has been an accident, like from staff's perspective, like what is the plan? Like, this is really great, the cities have been awesome, but there's no out of analysis, but what does this mean? Like, we can do this, but then how do we enforce it? Or what is the plan of enforcement? Do we have agreement with the police to say, yeah, like this is serious, we've already talked to them and we're gonna have them sitting here and on point to ensure, like, I would like to hear what the plan is for that.
So I do want to comment, you mentioned, I think the off ramp at Pleasant Hill Road, and that's just a static sign. We agree that the signs that light up are more effective in terms of compliance with the right turn on red restrictions. Would there be enforcement? We certainly would we would work closely with the PD to make sure that yes, they are enforcing it. Yes, people recognize that we're serious about making the street safer for pedestrians. So I can't speak for the police, but we work closely with them, and so yes, that would be a priority of ours that we would communicate to them.
Greg. So I understand the need for consistency, but I guess I think we're all have some concern with northbound Moraga Road onto Mount Diablo and how that's going to back it up. And I mean, what are your all's thoughts if, you know, that one had to be activated if, you know, pedestrian had to call in order to implement the no right turn on red? I mean, with the
I think your recommendation, maybe you can speak to that it be lit up at all times, is more for making the street more predictable for drivers, right? So that you know, like, it's not just look for the sign, we know that the restrictions are there at all times, every day. But an approach where it's when the pedestrian hits the signal would represent likely a reduction in delay because there may not be pedestrian calls at all times, right? So that is one approach we can take. Whether or not we take that approach at all 3 intersections or just Moraga Road, I don't know. At this point, that's kind of like the next, okay, if we agree and council agrees that the trade-offs are that safety is more important along this corridor than the resulting delay, then those are discussions we can have about how would we implement it, and some of those choices that we can make. So I don't have an answer for you on that right now, but I hear you.
And then maybe just to go into our recommendation, the reason why we're saying to have the right turn on red at all times is if we made it pedestrian activated, it would put over reliance on the pedestrian to create an environment for them to cross, as opposed to making the driver be aware that there's a right turn on red and that they cannot make that movement, right? And I think, yeah, it is more predictable in nature when, hey, we know that all downtown corridors or all downtown intersections, it's a policy maybe, that we don't allow right turn on reds. Because this is such a active pedestrian location, there are lots of crossings that happen throughout the day. So this is just something that is more predictable for people as they cross Mount Diablo or drive along.
Yeah, no, I hear you and understand that, I'm just, I think we've all got concerns with that one right turn.
Yeah, and I guess if you want us to speak more about the traffic operations analysis, I think we understood, or we know that that is a very critical location at Mount Diablo and Moraga, and so happy to talk more about like the findings at that particular intersection and what the queues may look like and what the delay. But I think as Bruno shared earlier, at least in the morning, when people are going north on Mount Diablo towards north on Moraga, towards the freeway, we actually saw like really little to no change, less than 10 seconds for the average delay at that location.
I think it's tough because this, Moraga Road, Mount Diablo is obviously a very important movement that we have. And we want to accommodate that to a certain extent. But I think that's also probably the intersection that might benefit from this the most. And it's an anecdote, but something that won't leave my head from a few years ago is there were two students crossing Moraga Road. I was going east, they were going west. They were starting at the beginning of their walk cycle. And you take into account the sort of typical behavior of a driver, they should stop behind the limit line and then inch into a crosswalk and look for visibility. But they went right into this crosswalk and these two students went over the hood of the car. So hearing this recent collision at First Street, I'd like to learn a little bit more about that because it sounds like it could be kind of similar. Compliance is a challenge. It's a challenge at Olympic and Release Station as well. We have the no turn on red there, and I think that's probably even worse in terms of like number of people that follow that as people are coming off the trail. But maybe it is a balance that we can make with these light up signs, that if it's just a metal sign, people might miss it. But if it's a light up sign, maybe it is something that can be turned on when the crosswalk is active and not beyond. I don't know. It's something that we can talk about. But I'd venture to say at 3 p.m. on a weekday afternoon, there probably are pedestrians, a majority of cycles. I think you looked at this at Moraga Road. So it's challenging. I mean, at the library, but also right here at our prime park, and students are trying to cross our linear street, or they're trying to get to the Noah's Bagels or the Jamba Juice, like that we want to do something for safety there, but we also want to keep traffic moving. So it's going to be a tough puzzle when we get to this particular movement. I just have one more. I don't know if we're going to go to public comment or come back with more discussion on the basis of
We are
public
going to go
comment.
back to, no, we are getting ready to go, yeah.
Okay, I have one additional that I think about. So with the no turn on red, it's protecting people in the perpendicular crosswalk to the direction of travel. The leading pedestrian intervals have been really helpful just west of this area, and that's protecting pedestrians in the crosswalk that's parallel to the direction of travel. So one that I always think of is at First Street, it's the west crosswalk, and people are coming off the freeway, they're in that mindset of going fast, and they get the green light, and green means go. And I'm always in the habit of looking over my shoulders and seeing if somebody's making that turn very quick, especially if they just approach on the green. I don't know where it would be appropriate to think about LPIs, if it's the Smart Signals project or when this is implemented, if it comes earlier, but I would encourage us to think about the leading pedestrian interval as a complement for the parallel crosswalks.
Okay, with that, I think it's a good time for us to go into public comment. So let's do that. Do we have anybody online that wants to, no hands? Okay, well then I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission. This is a tough one for me. Because I understand the need. I really truly understand the need. During the LRSP process, I was one of the people that went to the online map, and I indicated that intersection was one of probably the most problematic for pedestrians and bicyclists. But then I also know, the backup that can take place along Moraga Road, heading into going north into Mount Diablo Boulevard during commute periods, or on First Street, if you're coming off the freeway heading down towards Monte Diablo and, wanting to make a right turn there. So it's a challenge. So again, I understand why you want to make the right turn, forbid the right turn at all times. But if it were initiated by, pedestrian, what is the downside to that again? I'm just trying to understand why that might not make more sense, given the circumstances that I described to you.
Yeah. So the big benefit is the behavior change. When you know something's gonna work like that at all times, you behave a certain way, right? You accommodate for that.
Right.
But if that's not gonna be the case, then as a driver, you're like, okay, it's not on me to watch out, right? It's if that signal's on, then I'll stop. But if not, I can be reckless. Obviously, taking that to an extreme. So it's kind of like the reliability that as a pedestrian, as a bicyclist, you have that you're gonna be protected at all times. And not that you have to be kind of like going out your way to actually be like, please protect me. Yeah.
Okay. And Patrick, we're being asked to recommend one of those two options. And what are we
No.
being asked?
No,
No.
should this conceptually, the concept of implementing right turn on red restrictions go to council for them to say, okay, work on a design, right, and start to answer these questions.
Okay.
So this is kind of the planning phase, and then we would go into design and then construction afterwards.
So if we support staff's recommendation, then that would go to council. I assume they would agree with that, and then it would go into more planning, which would come back again to us, or and we would have a better idea of what it would look, how it would function, what it would look like, that kind of thing.
You could also make a motion to prioritize the sign for pedestrian call only, or,
Right. No, I understand that would still be an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Commission?
I have a follow-up question. So, worst case scenario. Let's say like the traffic's backed up, or we have these signs. And behavior does not change, because people don't want behavior to change, or whatever the case is, and maybe it does for some and not for others. So, but we do have these signs and they turn on when people are crossing. It backs up traffic. And like, because one of the questions I did have was, are we able to kind of change, like, and I remember you said in a previous meeting that it's very manual to be able to change like the how long it takes for the lights. Does that mean that we just have these really nice signs at the end of the day? Like, what does it mean? What is the outcome of this project? If at the end of the day, like, does that, like, after all the time and money spent on this study, does that mean that we just have really pretty blinky signs? Like, what is the outcome of that? And potentially like not any accidents or whatnot, but if it backs up the traffic and like we find out that
Are you
maybe,
asking, can we make changes?
I'm just saying like maybe based on what maybe based on what the studies is saying in regards to it doesn't delay traffic, and maybe it's not as promising as it states. And we put it in implementation, does it meet, and it's not what it is, does that mean that we just still have the signs, but we're able to adjust or not adjust, or what would it mean? I guess what my question is, are we able to adjust? Or is it just, once it's set, it's set? Like how does staff modify a project like this? I'm not familiar.
Well, one option would be to remove it,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that would be expensive to do, but we
Right.
could remove a project. We could change the signal timing, right? So we could make adjustments to signal timing at one intersection or along the corridor. If there is more delay, you could add more green time.
Mhm.
There are implications of that, because if you give green time to one movement, you're
Too
taking
much.
it away from somebody else, but
Mhm.
But yes, you could seek to find a balance.
Alternatives, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's pretty clear that the commission is somewhat conflicted on this, but the staff recommendation is to forward this to city council for conceptual approval, which I'm prepared to do, because my understanding is the concept goes to them. If they like it, if they agree with it, they'll approve it. Then it goes back to hard planning. And will come back to us as a harder plan where we can look at it and we can decide whether we feel the city should go forward with it in one form or the other. You know, that's when we will make that decision. So where we are right now, I'm comfortable with voting and approving staff's recommendation for a conceptual plan to forward to the city council. And then we'll see it again and we'll see what it looks like when it comes back to us. So I think, because again, in general, I in terms of safety, I see the need for this. But then I also see the realities of what might happen on Moraga Road and Oak Hill if we were to do something like this, unless it's really, you know, implemented in just the right way.
Well, in certain hours also.
Right, in certain hours.
In some hours,
Good point.
it's not gonna do any good. You don't have people waiting, kids.
Right. So do I have a motion?
So just to put a fine point on it, Mr. Chair, I agree. Conceptually, I agree. I guess I would just like it noted, you know, when it goes to city council and as it moves forward, that, you know, in particular, we'd like to see additional, you know, not options, but, you know, planning or thought around the Moraga Road, Mount Diablo intersection, you know, to see what other options may exist there.
Okay.
And that doesn't have to be part of the motion. I just think you can note that in the presentation. But yes, with that, I make a motion to approve staff's forwarding the conceptual plan to city council.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay. Len, were you gonna?
No, I wasn't. I was going to say we should learn how to enforce the no left turn before we even start more. We've got what's the street across from the schoolyard,
Is it Brook?
across the street.
From
There's
which school?
Brooke,
there's the
Is
one
it Brook?
Brook.
Brook.
Yeah, I think Brook.
Certain times of day that has no.
And
Yeah.
people turn constantly there.
Right.
Nobody's enforcing that and the public knows it. And they know that they're probably not gonna get a ticket unless they actively see a police motorcycle around or whatever. But they violate it right, left and sideways.
Well,
And nobody seems to care.
Commissioner Sahar made very clear that, and I agree with her, and I agree with you, that enforcement is key to this. So
Yeah.
so that's something we have to continue to focus on.
But we're not doing anything for that,
Well, we
it's not being enforced.
I
It's an empty.
we
law.
recognize enforcement is very important now and in the future if this goes into place. But we have a motion, we have a second. I'm gonna bring this to vote. All in favor?
Can I have one quick question?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I'd like to understand how the sequencing will be between the Smart Signals project, the county's project, and this. Because I wonder if there are some pieces of the Smart Signals project that can help traffic flow through this sort of dogleg zigzag a little
There
bit
should
better,
be,
what
but
opportunities there are.
So the Smart Signals project is a countywide project, right? So,
Right.
it's unclear now, whether or not this can be a change order to that project and we can just send the contractor to install this as part of that. So I don't have an answer to that question, but it is something that
Okay,
if we do want to implement it, we probably wouldn't implement it before the Smart Signals project. We probably.
it
wouldn't
just
want
seems
to.
like an opportunity
It-
that
it
if
is.
there is a way, it seems like these things should go together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yes.
I agree with that. A signal optimization would be key to getting it done right. So I agree
Yeah.
with that 100%. Are we okay with the
Back
motion?
to your motion.
Okay,
Yes.
we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, we have one abstention and the rest of us are in favor. So four in favor, one abstention. Okay, we good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Going back to our agenda, we are going to old business. Item 6A, quarter report on transportation action requests for the first quarter of 2025.
Yeah,
And old business, 6A.
Yeah.
Okay, and the recommendation is to receive and understand and
Right, so I come every quarter and report on the.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for our consultants, Fair and Peers for attending. Thank you very much.
So each quarter I come to this commission and I report on the transportation action requests that I received during the previous quarter. And so I wanted to report that for the first time in my several years here, I did not receive any in the first quarter of 2025, so.
Okay, thank you. That's short and to the point. All right, well then, item 6B is the TAR appeal at the crosswalk at St. Perpetua School on Hamlin Road. And staff's recommendation is to support the staff TAR determination from Hamlin Road. You want to go ahead and make a presentation
Yeah,
on
and
that?
the applicant is not with us tonight, either in person or online.
But and he was noticed, right? Because we pushed this from previous agenda, right?
We have pushed this.
Okay, twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
Okay, so this agenda item represents an appeal to a staff decision to a TAR that had been submitted towards the end of 2024. Next slide. And the TAR was submitted by a board member at St. Perpetua School who identified safety concerns at the crosswalk that spans between the parking lots, the sports fields, and other facilities on one side of Hamlin Road and the school buildings on the other side. So the TAR mentioned concerns with visibility, the grade of the street, and cracked and fading markings along the street that have contributed to safety concerns for those using the crosswalk. The initial request is for the installation of speed humps and the refreshing of the crosswalk and associated roadway markings on the street. And subsequent to the submission of the TAR, St. Perpetua School requested delineators that would be installed around the curb ramps at the crosswalks in order to choke down the width of the crossing. So when considering staff's response to this request, I first took look back at the results of the school safety effort that was conducted in 2021, with the efforts of a task force made up by staff, transfer commissioners, and members of the school community, as well as the broader community. And at that time, the same concerns were mentioned and a number of potential solutions were considered and discussed. Next slide. And what ultimately has been implemented along Hamlin, I tried to illustrate here. There's a high visibility school crosswalk. That's the yellow ladder crosswalk that was installed. Rapid flashing beacon crossings facing traffic in both directions. There are two signs, electronic signs, in advance of the crosswalk on the uphill and downhill sides that light up. It says PEDS in crosswalk when a pedestrian activates the rapid flashing beacon. So those are shown by the orange stars on the map there. A speed radar sign in the downhill direction was also installed, and it flashes when cars are exceeding the speed limit. And that radar sign is shown with the green star. There are multiple school crossing markings painted in the street. There's a pedestrian crossing paddle in the center line of the crosswalk. In addition, last year, the city reduced the speed limit in the school zone around the school to 15 miles an hour when children are present. And reduced speed limit signs were installed last summer in each direction on Hamlet. And those are shown with the blue stars. And finally, during school pickup and drop off times, the crossings of the crosswalk are enhanced with a crossing guard from the school. So there's been quite a bit of work done on Hamlin as part of this process. Next slide. So to also help understand the issue, I quantified vehicle speeds in both the uphill and downhill sections of Hamlin Road in advance of the crosswalk. And the locations of the speed collection are shown with the blue lines on the map there. And I use streetlight data to provide me with the speed data. And I used weekdays in 2024 during the month of the year when school is open. And what I found in the downhill direction was that the 85th percentile speed is 23 miles an hour. And on the uphill side, the 85th percentile speed is 24 miles an hour. And so staff believes that these speeds are entirely appropriate, given that they are lower than the posted speed limit of 25 miles an hour. And in addition, the average daily traffic volumes are about 750 vehicles per day in both directions. Next slide. Just a few slides just showing you existing conditions at this location. This slide shows the location from both directions along Hamlin. On the left, you can see the crosswalk, but also the electronic heads and crosswalk sign on the right, underneath the head crossing sign. And on the right is the downhill approach to the crosswalk. And some closer photos of the crosswalk. One can see that the crosswalk paint is in good condition. And of note on this photo on the right is that the small tree on the school's property does restrict the visibility of the rapid flashing beacon for drivers coming downhill. And so one recommendation that I did make to the school would be to trim that tree back. Again, just photos just to show that the markings are also in good condition, as well as the crosswalk. The next. Here are some photos of the additional enhancements, including the speed radar sign shown on the left and the PEDS and crosswalk electronic sign on the right. So in summary, my analysis indicates that speed humps were considered in 2021, that they were deemed infeasible given the grade of the street. But also the speeds of traffic do not justify speed humps. The markings on the street do not justify the relatively large expense to refresh them at this time. And delineators are not justified given the speed of traffic, and also not preferred from a public works point of view, given that they do require a lot of maintenance. Few suggestions that I have, Lafayette PD will be starting enforcement around schools in August when schools start, so I can let them know that this area has been identified as a location of concern, and that they should add the school to their rounds. As mentioned, the school could trim some vegetation to improve the visibility of the rapid flashing beacon. And acknowledging that much of the traffic during peak hours when school is open is from parents dropping off and picking up their kids. And so the school could remind parents of the importance of safe speeds and safety around the school. So I would invite commissioner discussion at this time, but do want to emphasize to the commission how much work has been done around St. Perpetua to improve safety, and that current data indicates that those efforts have been successful in improving conditions for the St. Perpetua community.
Thank you. That was a good presentation. Are there any questions for staff on this? No?
Just one, actually. Patrick,
Yeah.
you said that you use streetlight data to capture these numbers. Is it ever possible to go back in time and look at what those speeds were before you made all of these substantial changes?
I believe I can. I don't know.
Not
I don't
sure if
know
it make a
how
case, but it could be
far back
interesting.
you can go, but certainly pre-pandemic.
Okay, it's good to know that we can do that.
That's a good question.
The
Yeah.
only question I had.
I'd like to comment, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. You know, you're sort of laying out the requests and, you know, I don't see any distinction from our prior discussion about the delineators to speed humps, and appreciate the update on the other proposals as well.
Any other questions?
I thank you for the photos as well, and I was just there and it looks great, it looks just like this. I don't think it needs to refresh either, and, I agree, I think it's the parents that are driving a little fast, it'll be nice for maybe the principal to just send a reminder. And so does Burn Valley and our principal's reminder to drive safely, so. But I think I really admire the signs. I wish we had something like this for our school, so I'm a little jealous, but yeah, this is really great, so well done.
Okay, well, we'll go into public comment. Are there any comments? Public,
There are no hands raised.
no hands?
No.
Okay, well, we'll bring it back to the commission then. I have no questions or comments or discussion. Anyone else wants to discuss this further?
I'm glad you pointed out the tree, Patrick. I also made a site visit and I noticed that in the downhill direction, you can't see the beacon up the crosswalk on the left side. That seems like a very obvious thing to do that could really help.
Well, the picture on the left really sort of shows that as you're heading downhill, you have to get much closer before you're able to clearly see the crosswalk, so.
I think this photo on the right showed. There was another that.
Yeah,
Maybe
right
it's
here.
this one here on the
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's truly an unfortunate location for a crosswalk at the apex of a turn, but I really like the advanced warning signs. They weren't lit up because it's summer when I took a visit, but
Right.
that's a really good solution to put here at this location.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Motion to support the staff's charge determination.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous. So we'll move on. The next agenda item is commissioner and staff updates. So we'll begin with commissioners, any reports or updates on any relevant items? No?
Patrick, are you gonna address the Spring Hill Path or mention it or no?
Spring Hill Path, oh, I will.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's there.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's
It
great.
looks good.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll leave it to you.
Okay, are you ready for staff?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
Well, I guess, yes, go.
okay,
Yeah.
so a couple years ago, I received a grant for the pathway along Pleasant Hill Road, the west side adjacent to Spring Hill School. It had been an old gravel path. It wasn't really connected to the intersection, didn't really connect to the front of the school, but that project has actually just been completed last week or 2 weeks ago, and it looks great for those of you that haven't seen it. It's got a nice wood kind of fence line along Pleasant Hill Road. It looks great. And so it goes from the Briones parking lot up to now the new crosswalk at Spring Hill at Pleasant Hill Road. And so yeah, reached out to the school, let them know, and we'll do some outreach to the school community before school starts.
Thanks for doing that.
It looks fantastic and appreciate all the work you and the city have done on it.
Thanks.
Yeah, it really looks good.
Yeah,
Really looks good.
I'm glad you all noticed it.
Yeah. Okay, going back to commissioner comments, reports, anything else? We do go to staff with anything else you might have, Patrick?
I don't have anything new, no,
Okay,
anything else.
all right. With that, we come to item 9, which is adjournment. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna adjourn this meeting. It is 8:15. And
It's
I'm
amazing.
I'm calling this meeting adjourned. So thank you very much. Again, welcome to our newest member and farewell to our departing member. And thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Good meeting.
When you miss you.